The world is mourning the loss of celebrity chef and TV host Anthony Bourdain. He was found dead inside his hotel in France this morning. He is the second high-profile person to take his life this week. On Tuesday, world-renowned designer Kate Spade took her life in her New York apartment. Now, these tragedies are once again sparking a conversation about suicide and what you need to know to help yourself or help your loved one. Joining us now is Hannah Piercy, who created the Facebook group called Stigmatized, and Dr. Ben Hunter, a psychiatrist and medical director of the outpatient services at Skyland Trail. They have been answering your questions now for about 30 minutes on our Facebook Live, on our 11 Live Facebook page. And one thing that we were talking about before is the importance of the conversation, but what do you do? How do you start that conversation if it's your loved one or your friend that you think may be having some dark thoughts?
Gently, with love and compassion, but don't be afraid to ask the difficult questions if you need to. Approach it with compassion, empathy, and concern. How would you want someone to ask you about that if you were in a dark place?
Yeah. I think the most important part is that you ask, and as much as experts are extremely helpful in these circumstances and providers can help sort of negotiate these difficult situations, the people who know these family members and loved ones the best are their loved ones. And in many cases, the way that you've known to communicate with someone the entire time you've known them is the best way to kind of enter into this conversation. And knowing that someone that close to them is willing to have a conversation about such a difficult topic and is open to hearing the answers and helping them seek a solution and help find care is really the most important part.
All right, thank you both. You will continue this conversation with Lauren on our 11 Live Facebook page. That is going to continue throughout the rest of the half hour. You can send them any questions that you might have as well.